Good evening. You're locked in, and I'm your host, Algenon. Welcome back. That's right. Thank you for joining me for yet another public affairs conversation featuring some unique guests and always my unique commentary. So thank you for joining us again today. Before we get started, I do have a couple of exciting guests for you. But before we get started, just a couple of news updates for you. Today, we did get our latest GDP figures. So latest GDP figures released. The economy expanded at a 33.1% record annual pace. And that figure topped economists' estimates for a 32% increase, which is already well above forecast 3 months ago for an 18% gain. So it does seem like our economy, as we come out of the doldrums of COVID-19, it does feel like the economy is starting to rebound. We're obviously right in the middle of election 2020. There's nearly 80 million people have voted so far in this election. So that's more than 50% turnout. And we still have just about 5 days to go before the election, for the actual official election day. Here in North Carolina, right in our backyard, we've had almost 3 million people vote, or slightly over 3 million people. And it does appear that about 25% of those people going to the polls have either never voted before, or they're what we call infrequent voters, meaning they don't always vote in every election. So that does indicate that we do have some voter enthusiasm this time around. And so it's certainly an exciting election. If you have not voted yet, you still have an opportunity to vote early. I do believe we've got one more day of early voting, and then obviously the official election day is on Tuesday, November 3rd. I will be honest with you, I am someone who still needs to go vote. So I've got to make some time to do that. I keep letting the last couple of days, I've allowed the weather to get the best of me. That wind and rain kept me inside today. I didn't make it down to the polls. But let me turn direction to my guest today. I've got North Carolina State Treasurer Dale Folwell, also a good friend of mine. Haven't seen Dale in quite some time. He's been hard at work for the state of North Carolina. Dale, how are you today? Thank you for being here with us.
I'm great. It's great to be with you again, and I've got a lot of official things to inform your listeners about. I'm a frequent listener to your show, and appreciate all the valuable information that you bring to the citizens of WTOB.
Well, we appreciate all the work you do on behalf of the state of North Carolina. We go way back to the Piedmont Club days. I still miss the club, and but you've always been a tireless civil servant for North Carolina. You were a state legislator before you became treasurer, and so you've been doing a lot of good work for a long time. I know a lot of people that might be listening to us today, they may not always understand and know what it is the state treasurer actually does. So why don't we start there, Dale? Give us an idea of what it is that you actually are responsible for day to day.
Well, I get asked every once in a while if I sign the $1 bill. And it's really a fair question, because if you think about it, Alcian, that's where people most often see the word treasurer is on money. We don't sign the $1 bills, but we manage the 26th largest pool of $1 bills in the entire world, and public money. And that's $108 billion pension plan that all of those that teach, those that protect, or those that otherwise serve depend on. That $100 billion just by itself is 4 times larger than the state budget. And then on top of that, we are the state banker, which is about another $75 billion. We have a defined contribution plan, which is over $12 billion. We're the largest purchaser of healthcare and pharmaceuticals, which is another $3 billion. So when you add it all up, as keeper of the public purse, we manage over $200 billion. That is 8 times larger than the state budget. And in this time where everybody is fighting back and forth, all the things that are dividing our communities right now, none of that exists at the treasurer's office, because we are loyal to those that teach, protect, and serve. We deal with them in a fairly and justly way. And there's no Democrat or Republican or black and white or male or female money at the treasurer's office. It's all green.
You know, I read that Moody's just designated our system as #1 in the country in terms of our ability to maintain funding during economic volatility. What does that mean for North Carolina during a period like COVID-19?
What that means is that all those that teach, all those that protect, or those that otherwise serve our state and local communities, with all the angst and anxiety that they're facing in their lives, and public safety, public education, public works, public roads, there's one thing they do not have to worry about, and that is the safety and security of their pension plan. Not every public servant in every state can say that this morning. Our pension plan is nearly 90% funded. The South Carolina pension plan is 58% funded. The Alabama plan is 65% funded. One of the Kentucky retirement systems for their general government workers is 20% funded. So with everything going on in our world right now, the safety and security of the pension plan for those that teach, protect, and otherwise serve is not in question.
If you're just now joining us, you're locked in. My name is Algenon Cash. I'm your host. And the other voice that you're listening to with me is Dale Folwell, who's the North Carolina State Treasurer. And we're just having a conversation about what goes on in the State Treasurer's office. Not a lot of people are aware of what happens with the State Treasurer's office. And so Treasurer Folwell has given us some insight today. You talked about how some other state pension funds are funded. I know that you've talked a lot about the unfunded liabilities associated with our pension plans. Help us better understand what that means, and again, the impact to the state of North Carolina.
Well, I feel like our whole conversation today is steeped in honesty, simplicity, and upwardness, which is optimism. Just so much great news going around. When I was sworn in as the state treasurer of North Carolina, I inherited a $32 billion, that's billion dollar unfunded health care plan for those that teach, protect, and otherwise serve. We just reported 2 weeks ago, based on contract renegotiation that we had our fingerprint on, we were able to reduce the unfunded liability by $3 billion each year. It may be one of the few states in the whole United States that actually reduced their unfunded healthcare liability. And why should your listeners care about that? Because either they're on the plan and they care about it being around for them and the next generation of public service workers. But the second reason they should care is that this pension plan, this health plan, this pharmaceutical plan, whether you're the city of Winston-Salem, the county of Forsyth, or the state of North Carolina, the biggest expenses of running government are these three items plus interest on the debt. So being able to reduce that unfunded liability, and the way that we did that, Kelly King always says, focus on the why and we'll get the how fixed. Why did we do this? Because even though we have a AAA bond rating, just sending a signal to the rating agencies we're doing something about this is highly important. And we were able to do it by renegotiating a Medicare Advantage contract for our teachers, troopers, and other state employees over the age of 65. You're never going to believe this, Algenon. 0 premium to the member, $4 a month premium to the dependent, and no cost to the state. That one contract that we just negotiated is going to save $1 billion over the next 5 years.
There's somewhere around 727,000 participants within the state health insurance plan. You just mentioned about the program that you've rolled out. You are someone that has certainly taken on the hospital lobby, almost to the degree where obviously hospitals actually have come out against you in the current race. How do you think this has hurt or helped you politically by taking on the large hospitals here in North Carolina?
Well, I'll just remind you of something you and I have talked about in the past. Good policy makes good politics. And what Governor Martin has always told both of us for all of our lives, former North Carolina Governor Jim Martin, doing right's rarely wrong. And when you focus on getting rid of secret contracts in healthcare, there's none of your viewers, as smart as they are, when they consume healthcare in this state, they don't know the value and the price of what they got, even after they've consumed it. And so what we're trying to do is to get rid of secret contracting in healthcare, surprise billing and split billing. Now, it doesn't matter how your viewers are going to vote in the presidential race, but this is something that President Trump has issued an executive order, get rid of secret contracts. Elizabeth Warren talked about when she was running for president that rising healthcare costs and the bank was the leading cause of bankruptcy among individuals in the United States for medical bills. Warren Buffett said 14 months ago, who you're very familiar with, that the rising healthcare costs are the tapeworm on the U.S. economy. Bill Gates said 8 years ago, his bridge plank buddy, is that unfunded healthcare liabilities for state and local governments are the single biggest threat to public education. So we're not doing these things because we want to. We're doing these things because we have to. And we're very excited that we are on a path of, at least for the state health plan, of getting rid of secret contracts in healthcare billing.
Yeah, and that project that you're referring to, I believe you call it the Clear Pricing Project. Is that correct, Treasurer?
Yeah, clear pricing. Just like when you get my age one day, you'll know today's Senior Citizen Day at Harris Teeter. So if you want to buy your groceries, you buy them today and you get a 5% discount. It's amazing what can happen when you push the power away from bureaucrats and powerful lobbyists. When you push the power down to the consumer and let them pick for themselves the value and the quality and the cost of things, we're going to be able to increase quality, increased access, and lower cost, which disproportionately helps those people who are on fixed income and lower income individuals.
You know, in your role, you're representing the entire state of North Carolina, but you're from my backyard here in Forsyth County. Wake Medical just announced a big merger with Atrium out of Charlotte. What was your reaction to that announcement?
Well, it's just an extension of the cartel. And, you know, hospitals don't like me calling it that, but, you know, I went to Winston-Salem State and UNC Greensboro, and the folks over there taught me that when you struggle to find the right word, maybe you should go to the dictionary of the Bible and figure it out. Cartel in the Webster's dictionary is defined as an association which is formed to raise prices and restrict competition. Atrium Health calls themselves a nonprofit. They have $5 billion in the bank, but they're a nonprofit. Atrium Health tried to marry UNC Healthcare. That didn't happen. They just got divorced from Cone Health. So the fact is that this further consolidation of healthcare into the hands of fewer and fewer people ultimately will mean that quality goes down, access goes down, and prices will go up. And I'm against those three things.
Again, if you're just not joining us, you're locked in. I'm your host, Algenon Cash, and I'm having a public affairs conversation with our North Carolina State Treasurer, Dale Folwell. You can actually leave some comments and questions below if you like me to ask those directly to our State Treasurer. You know, Treasurer, you are a member at the Treasurer's Office is a member of the Council of State. You know, I think everyone in the midst of COVID-19 this year has had a real civics lesson. So more and more people are starting to understand the role of the Council of State. You know, what would you, as a member of the Council of State, what grade would you give Governor Cooper right now on his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, as far as his grade about the Council of State, I would give him a D. The Council of State, since St. Patrick's Day, has met on the subject of COVID-19 and flattening the economic curve of this state for less than 5 hours. Since St. Patrick's Day, we have met on the subject of COVID-19 for less than 5 hours. We should be meeting every day. We should be bringing our toothbrushes to meetings. We shouldn't be allowed to leave meetings until we figure out not just how to flatten the healthcare curve. And as your listeners know, I had my own intensive care stay with the COVID toward the end of March. Not just flattening the healthcare curve, but how are we going to flatten the economic curve of this state? We need to approach this not in secrecy, but with more transparency. We need to approach it with real data. We need to be consistent so that your listeners, who are the business people of this state, can figure out, why is this business allowed to open, but I'm not allowed to open? And more importantly, and the most important thing I want to tell your listeners today is this: we need to be able to challenge assumptions. We're just in an environment right now where anytime you challenge an assumption mathematically, it's called political. You know, there's nothing political about the fact that our citizens are facing the highest levels of job, food, health, and now educational insecurity and uncertainty, the likes of which we've never seen. and they don't give a darn what political party you're a member of. They just want their problem solved.
You know, you're also a former state legislator. I mentioned that earlier on, and now a member of the Council of State. I think a lot of people throughout North Carolina, a lot of residents were unaware that Governor Cooper or any governor in North Carolina has as much power as we're realizing. Do you think the governor has too much power in these, associated with these emergency powers that we've heard so much about here in 2020?
I'm just saddened, actually, that when we meet at the Council of State, which, by the way, if you can put 24 people on a school bus, why can't you put 10 people in a room of 600 square feet? We have not met. We haven't met since Valentine's Day. And the fact is that every time we have a meeting, when somebody starts to challenge assumptions, they hit the button and say, we're adjourned. The meeting's over. So I can't imagine, and this is what's so saddening and disappointing, that any governor would not want to look at Steve Troxler, one of the most respected leaders in agriculture in the whole United States, and ask Secretary of Agriculture Troxler about the food supply. Why wouldn't you want to ask Labor Commissioner Cherie Berry about the unemployment and what's going on in labor? I mean, why wouldn't you want to lean on Mark Johnson at the Superintendent of Public Instruction and ask, what methods should we use to try to be creative and get people back into classrooms? So I'm really sad and disappointed that the governor, forgetting about me as the treasurer and the chief financial officer, that he does not utilize the subject matter expertise around the table of the Council of State. We get an email. We have 2 hours to respond to that email. And by the way, I've emailed the governor on many, many occasions over the last 4 years. I've never received a reply email from him in 4 years as the state treasurer.
Do you think it's time for the North Carolina General Assembly to re-examine these emergency powers? I mean, is it within their authority to restructure the powers that the governor has, or?
Well, that's something they should look at, but I've always said to you, and I think you've always appreciated, you don't need a law to tell you what's right and what's wrong. I mean, you don't always need a law to tell you what's right and what's wrong. And it's wrong to have a duly elected Council of State. Half of the members got more votes than the governor did in the last election, but that doesn't really matter. But to have a Council of State where you have all this subject matter expertise and you're not utilizing it to take advantage of it, that expertise for the benefit of the citizens of this state.
When the General Assembly returns in January, I've heard all types of estimates in terms of what the potential budget deficit could be. I've heard $3 billion. I've heard $4 billion. What impact? Now I know that's the state budget, but what impact does that have on the Treasurer's office and your ability to work on behalf of your 727,000 participants?
Yeah. Well, that's just in the health plan, Algenon. It's nearly a million participants in the pension plan. See, in the pension plan, it's except for Winston PD and Charlotte Fire, it's every local employee, every county and city employee. So this really impacts us. So, being the keeper of the public purse is much like yoga. And, the secret to yoga is to pay attention to your mat and to breathe. And my mat is to do the best job that I can, saving money and making money for taxpayers. And anytime that we're really great at that, which we have been, that benefits the General Assembly and will be helpful in helping closing these budget shortfalls that you mentioned.
State Treasurer, I appreciate you being here with me today. I'm almost certain that my listeners got a lot of value out of the conversation. Obviously, you're very knowledgeable. We are in the middle of an election. You're on the ballot on November 3rd. Any closing remarks that you would like to make to my listeners before we sign off here? Or?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me, and the peace and the quiet and the memories that WTOB brings to so many people of our community. I was there at Thruway Shopping Center when we uncorked the time capsule, 50 years. I was there when they buried it. I was the paper boy in Ardmore. And so thank you for everything you've done. And when people want more information about this, they go to nctreasurer.com. But be sure to go to nccash.com. There's $750 million there that belongs to folks. And as you know, I worked at Honda Can-Am at Winston-Salem for 6 years. When I get an extra hour or two on a Saturday, I go out there and volunteer. I was out there 3 Saturdays ago, and the receptionist had 2 family members visiting her, and a business owner came in. 3 of the 5 people standing there had money at nccash.com. Check your name, your maiden name, your kid's name, and your business name. And I guarantee you, many of your listeners have things at nccash.com that belong to them, and we want to get that back to them as the state treasurer.
Well, that's our North Carolina State Treasurer, Dale Folwell. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for providing some good insight. As he mentioned, go check out nccash.com. You may have some cash waiting for you. State Treasurer, we'll have to get you back on here soon, okay?
Thank you, and be sure to wear your mask and be safe.
All right, you too. Good luck on the 3rd. So again, that's nccash.com. So go check that out. You may have some cash waiting on you. I know I'm going to go check it out. I could use some additional cash. So again, nccash.com. All right, as we continue to move right along here, as I mentioned, we are in the middle of an election. We are in election 2020. Elections happening all over the country right now. Somewhere nearly 80 million people have voted so far. At least 3 million plus have voted here in North Carolina. And I've got Jeff Zinger, who's joining us. Jeff is a candidate, the Republican candidate for North Carolina House 74. And I'm sure he's hoping that as you get ready to go to the polls, that's a name that you will remember. Jeff, how are you today? Thank you for joining me, man.
Hey, it is so good. I mean, are we finally doing this?
We are, man. We
tried.
I know we've been talking about doing it for a while. We finally made it happen today. How are you?
I'm doing very, very good. I mean, I'm feeling good. It's really been wide open. This has been a fabulous experience. I've really enjoyed it. And so anyway, we're in the heat of it now. I mean, we're only 4 days away or so. And like you said, about half the ballots have already been cast. And so I think election day is going to be a really, really busy day.
It sounds like it. It looks like there's quite a bit of voter enthusiasm out there right now. And, again, over 50% turnout so far. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on the big official day. Now, Jeff, you're a small business owner by trade. Your opponent, you're running against Winston-Salem City Councilman Dan Bessie, who's the Democratic candidate for House 74. Councilmember Bessie has been around politics for as long as I can remember. I think he's been on council for, 20 plus years. You're a newcomer to the political world. I always say that when people decide to run for office, they're either crazy or they're pissed off about something. So which one are you, Jeff? What made you get into politics?
Well, I think it's a combination. I mean, listen, I did 8 years at the Louisville Town Council, and what I found was my experience. I mean, you're a small businessman, so I think you'll appreciate this. Is as small businessmen, we're problem solvers. When my phone rings during the day, some of those phone calls are coming to me because there's an issue, there's a problem, and it's I've got to figure that out. And so I love people. I'm a problem solver. And it just seems like we don't have that perspective as much in politics. And so, as a small businessman, I'm sure it's the same way with you. When regulation comes down the pike or whatever, we're the ones that have to do it. It's one thing to come up with it and pass it. It's another thing to have to live under it. And so I just feel like for those of us that are taking the risk in business, for those of us that, I work with my hands, I have my whole life, let's have somebody there that brings that perspective to what's going on in Raleigh. We've had a lot of politicians, we've had a lot of lawyers. I think I've got something that I can bring to that. Additionally, and then you might not know this about me, prior to being in business for 25 years, I did urban ministry in Baltimore City for 13 years. I worked with young people. And so that's a rough town. I was on every block, every city block, everywhere. They were great days. I wouldn't trade them for anything, but I learned an awful lot. And I feel like that perspective, I certainly don't have all the answers, but I think about solving problems, and I really like to get in there, and I want to do the most for the most. Let's be as effective as we can, and that's what we do as small businessmen. Is we try to do the most that we can with the resources we've got. Is that not true?
You know, the Governor Cooper has taken a lot of criticism for how he's handled the economy in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, with the shutdowns and the restrictions and so much that's been put in place going back to March now. You know, if you were already in the General Assembly, what would be your reaction to some of the decisions that the current administration has made? Would you be comfortable or uncomfortable with where we are with our COVID-19 response?
Well, I will say at the beginning, I felt like we did everything we should have done. I mean, I had no problems. My problem was when it kept dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And when we let businesses have the opportunity, for instance, to open, it was amazing, the ingenuity. Listen, you're a business owner, I'm a business owner. Do you want your clients to get sick? Absolutely not. And so it was amazing to me to see the ingenuity and the way people thought and worked and said, here's how we can do it to make themselves available, but protect their people. And so I felt like, you know, as the summer started to drag on, we really should have leaned a little more on our folks. We've got great people in this state that can really come up with some really great ideas. And so additionally, the schools, we really need to try to work towards a way to get the schools back open. You know, private schools are open full blast. They have a waiting list. And then the public schools are shut down. And it just seems to me we got to start to think about how are we going to live and at the same time deal with this. I don't think that it's an all or none game. And so as far as your question goes, I think it's time that we need to start to move ahead. In fact, I think it's past time. And so, I talked to a woman the other day that I met while I was out campaigning, and her son is a junior in high school. And junior year is the year, you know what I mean? And he's doing it from his bedroom. And she's like, he's losing his mind. And so she's really fearful about him being able to get into college and what all that's going to look like. And so anyway, I really feel like it's time for us to start to trust people a little more and let them come up with some ways to do it. There are ways to do this. We can live with this and we can keep people safe.
You know, when you come into office, if you're elected on November 3rd, we haven't had a budget here in the state of North Carolina for a very long time. The governor has indicated that he will not assign any budget that doesn't allow for Medicaid expansion. What's your position right now in terms of expanding Medicaid here in the state of North Carolina?
One of the things that I want to do is try to bring a different perspective. You know, one of the things I think that is really sad is we have all these all or none issues. It's Medicare expansion or it's nothing. It's so and so or nothing. And I think we really need to sit down. I mean, there's a lot of folks who are a lot wiser than me on this, but we need to talk about how do we create the most healthcare options for the most people. You know, maybe there is a spot where there could be some Medicare expansion, but you know what? Maybe there's some other things that we can do as well. I know that for me personally, I really had to deal with those kind of things with healthcare back in 2011 or something when Obamacare passed. As a small businessman, my rates tripled. They tripled, and my industry was taking it on the chin in that downturn. We were the construction industry, and we were devastated. I had 4 young kids at home. I couldn't afford it. And so what I ended up doing was finding a healthcare sharing plan where it's a big group of people that share expenses. It's worked fantastic. Now that's worked for me. Now, I'm not going to say that that's best for you, but at the same time, I think we need to create as many options as possible. And so I know that that's not I would not rule out Medicare expansion, but we got to think of all of it. And so that's how I think when I look at this stuff, is I try to look at every angle. And sometimes I even argue with myself positions I don't agree with, but I do it because I want to get the best results. You know, I want to think it through thoroughly.
If you're just now joining us, you're late to the party, but you're locked in. I'm your host, Algenon. We're having a public affairs conversation. The other voice that you hear with me today or tonight is Jeff Zinger, who's a candidate, the Republican candidate, actually, for North Carolina House 74. Jeff, as I get ready to wrap up today, what would be your closing remarks to those who have not voted and may see your name on the ballot when they go here soon?
Well, I would just say, listen, if you'd like to have someone who's a small businessman, who's a problem solver, I love people. You know, I tell people I'm a people person and a problem solver. This Zoom stuff and social distancing killing me because I want to come and shake your hand. Okay. You know, that's just the way I am, but I'm a problem solver. I'm a businessman. I look at things a little bit differently. When I was in Louisville up council, I felt like that experience was great. I also put out to you that I'm a little different candidate in that, you know, when I did those 13 years of urban ministry, I was down there, I was on the streets, I was everywhere, I lived there, I did the whole thing. And so that perspective, I think, can really help in some of the other social issues that I'm certain are going to come up. And so if you're out there and you're looking for a candidate that you want to be, to go down there to represent the common folk that, you know, I came from nothing, I've worked really hard, who's a decision maker, who's a visionary, who's a problem solver, I'm your guy. And so I would appreciate your support. It's going to be a fierce election day. Everybody come out, bring your friends out, bring people that have never voted before. Let's do this thing.
Jeff, thank you for locking in with me. How can my listeners find out more information about you? What's your website?
My website is jeffzinger.com, and we've also got a Facebook page, and feel free to reach out to us in any way you want, and we'd be glad to respond. We love to talk to folks, and I love to go to little, you know, I've gone to a few have to be small these days, but small groups, and it's been great. And we're around at the polls, and we'll be out doing stuff on Monday. And so we'd love to hear from you. Great to be involved, and I really appreciate you having me. And I'm so thankful that we finally made
it happen. But yeah, go check out jeffzinger.com. Jeff, again, thank you for locking in with me. Thank y'all for locking in with me.
Yes,
if you
sir.
like what you heard today, make sure you share it with a friend. Tell someone else to come listen. Go check us out on YouTube as well. You can search Algenon Cash on YouTube. We've got some great content there as well. And I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Would love to connect with you. Y'all stay locked in.